Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come and listen to my session. 20 to 30 minutes, we're going to have a look at a practical guide to compliance learning. My name's Richard. I've been in L&D now for nearly 20 years. Had various different roles in various different sectors, mainly financial services, and I've kind of learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I'm proud to work for a unicorn, an access company. And I'm the product owner of their compliance serve solution, including the LMS and a suite of content specifically designed for financial services. So first of all, it's great to see so many people here. It's always a fear of a trainer or anyone in L&D to start to do a bit of training or a presentation and actually no one turn up. So thanks very much. So the three key things that we're going to have a look at in the next 20 minutes is understanding how to develop a learning culture. We're going to have a look at e-learning, whether or not you use it currently or you're here as your first kind of foray into looking at a learning management system and also compliance training, mainly e-learning. And have a look at the strategy that wraps around that. And then lastly, we're going to have a look at what makes compliance training rollout successful. I've been to many of these in the past, both in the same positions as you have. I've gone down the traditional route where I put quite a lot of words on the slides, so for all those with cameras, you should get quite a lot off the slides in terms of what we're talking about. So I'm going to kick off with a question for everyone, and you can do a hands in the air, and try and be as honest as you can with it. As someone who's responsible for training in your firm, do you really feel that you have a culture that supports it? Do you really have the time, the resource in terms of people and money that really helps you do what you need to do, that really supports it? So we've got a couple of hands here and there, maybe some half hands, but the majority stays down. I can empathise with you, being in exactly the same position. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to turn that around for you today. Sorry. But what I might be able to do is just to give you some insight, some helpful hints and tips that you can take away and have a think about implementing with your colleagues. So if we have a look at understanding how to develop a learning culture, as I'm sure that you probably know and have established in the environment that you work in, culture really does need to start from the top down, with your senior leadership team. Because if you don't work with them, if you don't think about what their strategy is, if you don't find out what their strategy is, what their business goals, what their aims are, how are you going to be able to match what it is that you're looking to do in the L&D space and get them to invest in the time and the resource and the funds that you need to actually be able to do what you need to do? So my first kind of top tip is to really have a think and have a look at and get hold of the information from your senior leaders as to what their strategy is and then match up what you want to do to it. The next one, and it kind of flows down from here in a bit of a tier, is once your senior leaders buy into that and they get behind it, then they will naturally then influence the management team. And it's the management team that are really the ones that hold all the keys to the employees, which in the end are the ones that you want to influence and the ones that you want to change their behaviour and to do something different through L&D initiatives. So if you understand the goals of the management team, that will then naturally help them be able to promote your learning and development initiatives and then influence your workforce. And then it will be down to your workforce, once they start to get engaged with that, they'll be your advocates, they'll be the ones that will advertise your learning offering, they'll be the ones that will be promoting it, they'll be the ones that others walk past and see them actually undertaking training. And then from there, you'll be able to generate a lot more interest in what it is that you're doing. So your kind of key takeaway on this one is influence. And it's really having to think about how you can influence your senior leaders, your management team, and also your workforce to get on board with what it is that you're looking to do. The second part of this, in the developing the learning culture, is having a look at where your first points are with the staff that are joining your firm. And naturally, that's going to be at recruitment. So does your recruitment team, for example, do they promote a learning culture? Do they actually, at interview stage or even on the website, mention that L&D is a kind of a core ethos and a cultural element to what it is that you do? Is that talked about at interviews? We all know that people join firms to also develop themselves and see a career pathway and see where they're going to go in their job. If L&D's not talked about at that kind of early crucial stage, then individuals may well go somewhere else where that is actually talked about. Then it's having a look at the importance of induction. And many of induction I put together and rolled out and been part of, where L&D unfortunately has never been mentioned. You know, is it tied into maybe a KPI at a firm to do professional development within a year? Is there a set target to do that? Does it tie into really the importance of developing themselves? Is it actually advertised what your L&D offering is at an early stage? When people sit there and listen to you as someone representing the whole of the firm, is that kind of really a core element of what it is that you do? Your key takeaway here and your call to action is to evaluate and improve what your firm does in both of those areas. So get out there and have a chat with your recruitment team. Work with your line managers that actually sit there and interview people and talk to them about how they can start to mention your learning development offering. And then also, it's really have a look at the induction that you roll out and evaluate that against your L&D offering. Is it mentioned? Is it talked about? Is it something that's quite prominent within there? Because only at that point can you then start to influence new people that are joining. And in actual fact, you know, individuals that perhaps once you've revamped an induction, you know, could you invite those back on certain parts of that induction to learn a bit more about perhaps the new elements that you've rolled out? And the last one on here is succession and career development plans. Obviously, quite a key element to a firm's success in moving forward. So, do you know who your future leaders are and who your managers are? Do you have career development pathways that are lined up to them? On the learning management system that you might have or are considering, is there a way to set out learning pathways that you can attach content to that prepare people for being a future manager or a future leader of the business? Do you have any single point of failures? So is there any individuals that are the only people that can do that within your firm? Is there a way to get the information out of those individuals and use, you know, a learning development platform to then spread that knowledge? And B, C and D teams. So I use a really good example here of Visa and TSB that hit the news relatively recently with some epic fails where they relied on teams that were out of hours that were nowhere near as well trained as the teams that were working during hours. And because of that, they weren't able to get the bank up and running in a quick and orderly and efficient time. And actual fact, you know, what it was pinpointed down to is that the cyber attack happened at 4:30. Everybody had left a little bit earlier or was working from home on that Friday, so they didn't have the key individuals that were actually the only ones trained to be able to turn that around and to be able to be resilient to that cyber attack and to be able to get them operationally ready within a quick time. So it's having to think about the single point of failures and those individuals that may well not have access to the face-to-face training or the in-hours learning development, and trying to think about how you can broaden that offering. So your call to action here is to undertake an evaluation. And one that I've found quite successful has been the 9-box grid, because that really kind of helps you evaluate where your employees are now, perhaps where their potential is going to be. So an evaluation of how you can get them from where they are now to perhaps where they're capable of going. Their readiness for promotion. So in actual fact, are they already a high performer, and are they ready for the next step? Are they ready to move up in the career development ladder? And of course, you know, as with here, the single point of failures in your B, C and D teams, you know, is there any flight risks? So is there any individuals that you know about that potentially could be thinking about moving on, and how can you help support them through L&D initiatives? So the second part that we're going to talk about is focusing on e-learning, which I'm sure is probably the main reason that you're here today, and what kind of a key role that does play in your strategy. So the first point that I've got up there is all about the ease and effectiveness and also how e-learning can increase completion rates over and above traditional face-to-face and other learning. So the first one, increased return of investment. Really, this is quite easy to pin on e-learning, in that it's really easy to put out there. It's easy to deploy, and it's very cost effective. You know, I'm sure that you've talked to quite a number of e-learning providers today that provide various different pieces of content across a broad range of different topics. And in actual fact, a lot of them are quite a lot cheaper than a consultant that you might bring in to do some training for you. And I suppose if you have a think about sending individuals on an Excel course, for example, just how many of that 6 or 7 hours worth of Excel training are they actually going to get out of it, or are they just there for an hour's worth of those nuggets? And I kind of ask you how you learn. If you wanted to learn to do a VLOOKUP or some formulas on Excel, you're probably going to Google it and go onto YouTube to find out how to do that. And of course, the way in doing that is that you won't get your CPD logged, so it doesn't go towards that in an early learning management system, unless of course that individual takes it upon themselves to log it themselves so that they've actually learned something and delivered it. The reduce of admin is quite high, so what that will enable a lot of automation, setting up registration rules for content, setting up induction pathways, automatically issuing out content to individuals, and that can be department specific, it can be role specific. Talk to your learning management system provider, and if you haven't already picked one, have a chat to the ones that are around the stalls today about how they tackle that topic. And in reducing that admin for your trainers, yourself and your training team, it'll allow you to concentrate on doing some of the other elements that you don't get that time to do. The next one on there is easily accessible. So that's a must. There's an awful lot of learning management systems that come with a partner app that allows training to be done offline. I use Unicorn and our compliance serve solution. Our content is all built in our own authoring tool, which allows you to download content offline, be able to do that on the train, on your commute, in between meetings, wherever you want to do that. And then when you link up back with your network, it'll upload your CPD solution. And the next one on there is helping increase the completion rates. And this is through users wanting to pull content rather than push content. You play a big kind of key part in advertising the learning offering, and making sure that people know what you've actually got on your learning management system and want to engage with it. And therefore they'll want to pull that training down and undertake it rather than the typical, compliance push out a course a month. The next one on there is all about learning and retention. So micro-learning, I'm sure you've heard it quite a lot today as a buzzword. All that really means is that it's split up into smaller bite-sized chunks that you can pick up and you can drop down. So I work with a fantastic team at Unicorn that design e-learning for regulatory and compliance, and those elements are all split up into smaller assets which allow individuals to be able to pick up and drop down. But what it also does, it puts administrators and learning and development professionals in a bit more control to be able to issue out smaller elements of pieces of content rather than be faced with 45 minutes or an hour plus worth of content. Making sure that it's blended, so that means that it hits quite a lot of the learning styles that an individual would like to see: audio, video, subtitles, transcripts, animations, questions and answers, assessments, some words on screen, just a whole variety of different ways that content can be put together. So again, if you're looking for content, make sure that when you speak to those providers that you really ask them how their assets are made up. And the next one is all about engagement. And this is where you can use communications to tell a bit of a story about why individuals should be undertaking the content that you've got. So what does it mean to them? So, for example, if we take Visa and TSB that I spoke about earlier on, if they were to then issue out some training to their teams that would help mitigate that ever happening again, what they might want to do is they might want to get the Chief Technology Officer perhaps to record a video and do a bit of a story at the front of that, which would then reinforce the message that the senior leadership team buys into that, and that you tell a story so that individuals really do engage with it. The next one is learner feedback. So even in our private life, whether we're booking a holiday, booking a hotel, whether we're buying a television or another appliance, we probably always have a look on review sites to see how people have rated content. So again, a good learning management platform will have the ability to rate content, so that it provides some comments and user ratings for individuals when they're looking for content. Specifically, if you might partner with a marketplace that pulls content from lots of different providers, that it kind of gives a clear view of what's the best ones. And also allows them to upload and to rate it as well. Feedback and evaluation. So again, individuals will like to be able to leave feedback. TripAdvisor is a great example of where we're pretty quick to probably leave terrible reviews, but not so quick to leave good ones. It's about getting that even balance. And of course, that then helps you evaluate your learning offering and decide whether or not it's something that you want to renew, or it's something that you might then need to change and look for some change. And I mentioned it before, that then helps with engagement, because if learners feel that they can leave comments and rate for their colleagues, then again, and their comments are actually taken on board, and they can see that things change following that, they're more than likely going to want to continue to engage back with that content and anything new that you put up there. The next one on there is a needs analysis, behaviour change, and also getting results. So a really good tool to look out for on a learning management system platform is a diagnostic assessment tool. This is something that can really help you identify where your workforce sits now. So, for example, if we take that example from earlier on with cyber resilience, what you could actually do is, rather push out the training, you could actually push out a questionnaire or assessment based on the training that then you can use the MI out of the back of that, which tells you holistically across your departments or across your whole organisation where your individuals sit. And that's really powerful information that you can take to your senior leaders to help influence them, to change the culture and to push out content. And then, of course, you can use the diagnostics on the last point at reassessment stage. So if you were to roll something out, you were then got the evidence to prove and show that people needed to take the time to engage and to undertake training, you could then use the assessment or diagnostic tool 3 to 6 months later on, which would give you, a really good picture of what's changed from before you rolled it out to after you did. What and how the digital way, that's really just about thinking about how you're going to use e-learning as a different way to deliver training. So this is your content, whether it's technical, whether it's soft skills. This is the elements that's going to teach people to do something differently than they're doing at the moment. And the learning reinforcement, any content that I would recommend that you look at should have short, sharp other elements that you can use as learning reinforcement at a later stage, whether that be a summary video of the entire piece of e-learning content that you're rolling out, or whether that's something like podcasts, learning nuggets, something short and sharp that is a summary of what's been done prior. And lastly, make sure that you've got decent reporting in your learning management system when you select it. So have a look at the reporting suite. And use that with the diagnostic tool, so the before, the during and the after, so that you can really measure the impact that the e-learning has had in changing people's behaviours and in doing something different than they were doing before. The last part that I'm going to cover on the practical guide is what makes compliance, specifically compliance training rollout, successful. So the first one is who does what. So many an organisation have I come across where they blanket everybody with the same content. It doesn't matter who they are, whether they're the CEO, whether they're customer facing, whether they're back office operations, everybody does the same thing and everybody does it every month. So how about looking at a different approach to that? I'd recommend that you work holistically. So specifically, if we're looking at compliance training, you need to work with compliance and you need to work with all your business function heads to have a look at the content that you've got and work out the pathways for your staff members within those functions. And in actual fact, you can drill down to job roles as well. So if your LMS has the ability to build content pathways and assign that to individuals when they start or when they change roles, then that's the best way to do it. Because you can then really make sure that individuals just do the learning that they need to do and they don't spend time doing the learning that makes no sense to them. And then, of course, then that reduces the complaints coming back to L&D about, why am I doing this? It makes no sense. Create buy-in. It will naturally happen if you follow that. If you go out and you work with compliance, if you go out and work with your business unit functions and your heads of, you will naturally engage them and you will naturally show that they're getting the learning that they need and none of the stuff that they actually don't. And then you can start to think of bringing in, soft skills training to match up with the technical content that the regulators are looking out for you to evidence. And the last one on there, which I've kind of mentioned with the last two, is pathways and role-related learning. And I would really, emphasise the fact that when you're looking at a learning management system provider, or you already have one, is have a look at how you can build pathways of content and how you can automate that with data feeds from your HR system or from Active Directory. The next one's all about strategy. So I mentioned about that course a month. That's pretty much, I would say, 80 to 90% of firms out there will literally just do the course a month. So anti-money laundering in January, countering bribery and corruption in February, cybercrime in March, so on and so forth. So how about maybe flipping that on its head and doing something different? If you are going to do that, then work with compliance to actually tie it in with when there's audits, when there's compliance reviews, when there's policy updates that are going to happen, so that you can actually link it to stuff that's changing within your firm. If you want to ditch that and you want to do something different, how about doing a topic a quarter? So you could pick financial crime, for example. Not a particularly exciting topic, I know, but definitely something that financial services would need to undertake. But there's a multitude of pieces of content: bribery and corruption, anti-money laundering, fraud, customer due diligence. You could pick a topic and roll that out over a quarter so that individuals can see how each topic rolls into the next one and holistically how that will impact your resilience to financial crime as a whole. Another good way is to bring in line with your performance management regime. I would assume that a large proportion of companies will undertake one-to-ones, probably still do the traditional mid and end year reviews. So how about thinking of using that diagnostic tool at the performance management stage? So when you do your mid and end year reviews or when you do the one-to-ones, before you have that meeting, issue out that diagnostic assessment, on the suite of financial crime or any topic that you wish, whether it be soft skills, business development skills, or whether it be technical. And then that naturally then brings it into when you have conversations or when line managers have conversations with staff. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, it's thinking about a clever way to use those diagnostic tools at all of those times, which will then naturally limit down what individuals need to do. And you can use that induction as well. So if an individual joins your firm and has got 15 years worth of experience, what good is them sitting through 10 to 15 to 20 courses when they can already evidence that? That diagnostic tool will help you provide knowledge and evidence that they're competent in those areas. And in actual fact, a clever diagnostic tool will then only present them with pieces of learning on the elements that they got wrong within that assessment. Communications and customization are two things to consider as well. So communications is all about working with your line managers, and if you're lucky enough, your internal communications team. It's about putting stories out there. It's about telling individuals why they need to undertake the training. What difference does it mean to them? What difference does it mean to the firm? What difference does it mean to the customers? And actual fact, in some cases, what difference does it mean holistically to the financial services industry and the economy as a whole as well? telling a story. So it's not just about what it is they're doing, it's why they're doing it. Senior leader messaging always helps, always goes down well. So using a comm strategy that maybe videos one of your senior leaders making a video and a message to tell the story of why they're doing that. And in actual fact, a lot of learning management systems come with a creation tool, an inbuilt authoring tool that might allow you to take an off-the-shelf product, an off-the-shelf course, and be able to top and tail it. Be able to put a declaration, a link to a policy on an intranet, be able to allow you to put a video at the start of your senior leader, telling them what it is that they're going to be doing and why. Make it relevant and make it fun. So you can always do that within your comms strategy. And in actual fact, there's some really good apps out there which can kind of be used for learning reinforcement and to test knowledge. If you're going to do it in financial crime, you could do a swipe left, swipe right app on, Richard, is your MLRO, yes or no, and a quick rapid fire, and then use that on your intranet to have a bit of a leaderboard. So make it a bit of fun, make it a bit interesting. And a lot of good, e-learning providers, learning management systems will have that functionality. OTS or custom content is a real big dilemma, because we will always want to try and make content as relevant to our business as possible. But of course that comes with quite a hefty price tag, and in actual fact, building one course can sometimes be the same cost as having a suite of 40 odd. So it's about being clever with that, being clever with your comm strategy, being really clever with an authoring tool that allows you to customize that content. And the last one, the last point that I've got on there is using your subject matter experts. Again, a lot of learning management systems will have the ability for you to pin a subject matter expert in a particular area to content when it's rolled out. And what that does is that provides either a safe environment for an individual to ask some questions that they might not be comfortable with asking their manager or their training team or their colleagues. But it gives them that safe environment to do that. And some actually have discussion boards as well, where individuals can go on and look at prior questions and answers that were put on there and can post their own. And if your learning management system doesn't have that functionality, then you can always go the traditional route with signing champions throughout your business and giving them nice T-shirts to say, ask me about AML or ask me about cybercrime. And again, it just provides that extra bit of engagement for individuals, something tangible for people to go to other than to just engage with the learning management platform. And that's it from me. So thank you very much for listening to this short session. I hope that you took a couple of elements away from that. Please visit Unicorn Training. We do regular updates of our content and our learning management system. We do quite a lot of blogs and vlogs of what we're doing, but also what's going on in the industry. Unicorn partners with some great financial services trade associations, Chartered Insurance Institute, UK Finance, the Investment Association. So we pride ourselves on the content that we've got on our learning management system platform. And if you want to visit us, we're just around the corner on booth 15. Also, please do find me on LinkedIn and connect, and I'll be happy to have a chat with you about any of my experiences, but also anything that Unicorn's got to offer. So thanks for your time, and enjoy your rest of your afternoon.